Revelation 3348, from the 27th of November 1944. A natural event. Victims of good and bad people. At the hour of severest distress many people will call upon God, but not every call will come from the heart, because the danger they are in takes away all their ability to think, and thus they will merely address God with their lips and their prayer will go unheard. Only those who are capable to send their thoughts to Him, even though just for moments, God will stand by them either to save them from the trouble of their bodies, or else, prior to the end, to still offer mercy to their soul. It is not always death to be considered the greatest evil, for if a person facing death still has found one's way to God, it thus has been an effective means towards one's salvation, which is worth more than the preservation of the physical life in spiritual darkness. And that's why countless people will lose their life within a short time, partly as a warning to the fellow man, partly for the sake of their own spiritual need. But just ones, too, whose course of life is finished according to God's will, are called from this earth to their Maker. For wherever God Himself is recognizable at the revolting of the forces of nature that are subject to God's will, there His will is also decisive as to who becomes a victim of these happenings. Mature and immature ones will have to leave this earth. Yet, if prior to one's death a soul has gotten to know God, the one's spiritual development in the beyond is guaranteed, and the finished earthly life is nothing but a blessing for the one. And the earthly distress will be severe and will offer the possibility to everybody yet to find one's way back to God, for the natural event will announce itself beforehand. Unusual signs will indicate an unusual event so that every person can still reflect on oneself, and one will also by means of one's neighbors be directed to the highest power, the director of heaven and earth, to the point where the one has time and the opportunity to combine with Him by means of intimate prayer. But by now the remoteness of mankind from God shows, for just a few accept Him. Just a few turn to Him for protection and help in their fear and affliction. Most of them turn Him away, intentionally and unintentionally. They watch the spectacle of nature, continuously hoping for a soon termination, and the hour of distress therefore hits them the more severely because they feel completely left abandoned, since they lack any faith altogether. Yet of these distant from God people many remain alive, to whom God still gives the opportunity to see the light afterwards. Good and bad people will lose their life, and good and bad people will keep their life, for this catastrophe of nature is not yet a separation of the spirits, but only a last reminder prior to the final judgment, the former of which all people ought to draw for their mental use. Yet, it is up to them as to how they want to utilize this last reminder. They can get to see the light prior to or after the disastrous night, but they can also stick to their old way of thinking, and the great happening might as well be without impression upon their souls. And, afterwards, too, there will be people at work hostile to God, out to destroy any faith in God, and they will put emphasis to this natural event as to be their strongest proof of His non-existence. They will emerge as greatest deniers of God from a happening meant to lead them back to faith. And that's why it's obvious the struggle will flare up between those who were made strong and faithful by the happenings and those who have survived it in spite of their unbelief. And after mankind has been granted yet a short time of grace afterwards until the last judgment, thus everything will be approaching the end. Amen.